Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Zillow home sale report, the rental report. They have forecast for home prices for next year nationwide. These are nationwide numbers.
And he has really cool charts, so hang in there. It'll be worth it.
Really cool charts. Before we get started, though, today was a super important day. The Fed met and did not raise rates. Mm-hmm. They said they might have one more, but they were planning 2 or 3 rate decreases next year.
Okay.
Now, Oana, we know that the actual mortgage rates lead those.
Yes.
So far, the predictions that a bunch of people, banks and people like that have made about what rates will be next year potentially could happen. Not saying they will be. Probably not going to be 7.5% interest rates next year.
And probably not 4.5 either.
No, they're not going to be 4.5 next year. So. Maybe 2 years. That's 2 years.
Well, let's see how things go. Okay, let's dive into this.
Okay, here's the headline of the article. Home values inch higher in dog days of summer. August 2023 market report. Dog days of summer sounds like a 1970s Al Pacino movie.
You know, I think there was some movie that had a title something like that.
It was Al Pacino. It was called Dog Day Afternoon.
All right, there it was.
Yeah, he was like a robber who. It was about the standoff between him robbing a place and the police. It was
Okay.
So one of his first movies. It was really good. Okay, all right. So here's the first quote from the article. The typical U.S. home value climbed 0.2% from July to August. A marked cool down after a red-hot monthly appreciation the previous 3 months. The nation's typical home price value has reached another all-time high and stands 1.3% higher than last August. Okay, 2 things in here that are interesting. It's still going up, Oana, July to August. Why is that a big deal? Why is it a big deal that home prices are going up from July to August?
Because that's generally not what happens.
Did it happen in 2019?
No.
2018?
No. 17?
No. 16?
No.
It doesn't happen. It happened only 2 years before this.
Right.
20 and 21.
Right. So look, the pandemic changed a lot of things. It changed everybody's mental clock, so to speak. So the economic clock is different. Everybody's mental clock is different. So a lot of things are different. So looking at the past and trying to predict the near future is probably not going to work out. Looking at the past and trying to predict the intermediate or far off future is probably a better use of history. But the near future, I think, all bets are off. Things are just different this time around.
Okay, let's talk about the other thing on that sentence, which said, or the quote, mm-hmm. which said it's an all-time high. Mm-hmm. So home prices are back to an all-time high. Mm-hmm. This would have, if you had made a video like we did, May or June of last year, and said, by August of next year, home prices will be back an all-time high. What do you think the response would have been from other people?
They would have thrown Rotten Tomatoes at their screens.
Yeah, we would have been ridiculed. We actually had somebody, and I hope you saved the video. We had a guy come in the channel and say, okay, I've downloaded and saved the video so you can't delete it later. Oh, hey, great. So you've got the proof that we basically pretty much have a really good idea what actually happened. We said prices would moderate before they started going back up.
Let's go back to the chart.
All right, so let's go back in this other chart here. Now, what we did was they pulled the top 50 markets, mm-hmm. and they looked at month over month. Here is the list. This is the index month over month, July to August. The number one market was Hartford, 1.3%. Buffalo, San Diego. Of course, San Diego is red hot. Now, when you say 1.3%, 1% point, like San Diego, 0.9%, you're like, oh, that's 0.9% is nothing. But Oana, that's month over month.
Right. So these are actually really huge numbers when they're month over month, right? Because if you were to extrapolate that and say, well, over the course of a year, if that happened every month, what would it be? That would be huge. That is not what's happening over the course of the year. But month over month, it is a big change.
Okay. Also, the reason these are a big deal is because this is July to August. Mm-hmm. And this is generally, you have far more. Almost all the markets had there were only 2 or 3 markets that had pullbacks month over month. Almost all of them had increases. This report's online. You go look at it. My favorite one was the number 7 or 8 down there, Las Vegas,
Woohoo!
0.6%. So that's about a 7.2% annual rate of increase, even though I'm not saying home prices are going to go up 7.2%, but they've been going up substantially the last few months, right? Because we do market updates every week and we've been watching them go up. Miami, 0.5%, but remember, they've been super red hot too. Mm-hmm. But it's really odd to see a lot of these markets with price appreciation this time of the year.
Yeah.
You think so?
It is. But, it just speaks to what's happening in the marketplace, right? We have very little inventory. We still have strong buyer demand for the amount of inventory that is available. So that's where the support is coming from.
Okay, the other thing here is the inventory chart. This is for the whole U.S. Mm-hmm. You can see we are lower inventory than 2019, 2020. We have the lowest inventory this time of year, and we've had the lowest inventory since about June. Mm-hmm. Very low inventory. This is not, you could see the trend. If you go to August, September of any other year, on this chart, the inventory declines all the way into next spring. So we're already starting from a low point. Mm-hmm. So the idea that we could have a bubble, meaning a whole bunch of homes come on the market somehow, and then people would have to dump the price to sell, is not even a possibility.
Right, not with the current status quo.
Right.
There are opportunities for that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay, so the next thing on here that I thought was really cool was the forecast change for home prices from Zillow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the home price forecast. Now, this chart, we've shown a similar chart before. These are not home prices, so don't look back at 21 and 22 and go, oh, but look how far home prices have fallen. This is year over year change. So anything above that 0% at the bottom is an increase from the previous year. So basically, August to now of August last year was up 1.3%. They're predicting from today, or from August of 23 to August of next year, 4.9% appreciation. And you can see that we were above 15% for both 2021 and 2022.
Right. So what does 4.9% appreciation really mean when we have inflation right around there, or give or take a little bit lower, a little bit higher? What does that really mean? Well, that's kind of a push, isn't it?
It's a push.
Yeah, right. So it does mean that real estate is a reasonable hedge against inflation under these circumstances. But, it doesn't mean that you're going to make necessarily money over inflation. So that's an important distinction.
Right. Yep. Okay. Now we're going to jump to the next part, which is what rents have done. Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's the headline. Rents climbed modestly again in August. This is the August 2023 report. Mm-hmm. Annual rent growth cooled again to 3.3% in August. Remember, rent growth we've got a chart, was substantial. Like, we've had substantial rent increases. We've got a couple of charts actually that are going to show that.
Right. So remember, when you go through a period of substantial price increases, whether it's rent or something else, it's not uncommon for prices to stabilize and even decrease a little bit as the market kind of catches up, so to speak, right? So just because rent prices are not continuing to go up at the pace that they were going up at before, it doesn't mean that somehow renting properties is not a good investment. It just means that the market needs to kind of catch up to the rapid price increases that we saw.
Okay, this next chart, there's two parts to it. The first part I'm going to show you, this is the absolute level of rents from, looks like 2015 to 2024. You can see in 2015, a median rent was probably $1,250, $1,300. It's over $2,000 now. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty substantial increase, right?
It is. So if you were a tenant during this period, it was crunch time. It was really hard to keep up with that constant increase because it wasn't just your rent that was increasing, right? I mean, gas prices went up, utilities went up, everything went up. So it was difficult for people to keep up with that.
Here's the other problem. If you look at this chart, back in 2015, if you could have bought a house and your monthly payment was $1,500, you were probably saying, well, why would I pay $1,500 to buy a house when I can just rent for $1,300? Well, if you had bought that house and paid $1,500, you had a $1,500 a month mortgage payment, you'd still have the $1,500 a month mortgage payment. While your next door neighbor would be paying $2,000 to rent this exact same house. The other thing you would be losing is you would have not captured all the appreciation. You would have not got any tax benefits for the mortgage deduction, if that applies to you. And you would not have, every time you make a mortgage payment, paying down your principal. So you're missing a lot of benefits. Not saying homeownership is right for everybody, but sometimes you have to delay gratification when you make decisions buy versus rent. And I'm not saying you should run out and buy now. I would get people that don't even watch the video. They immediately jump in the comments. Why are you saying this is a good time to buy? Right? Okay. The next part of this chart, this is the year over year changes. Okay. Now, anything above 0% is meant year over year changes. The reason why we're showing you this chart is you can see the spike in how rents increased in late 21 and 2022, but the percentage change of rents dropping substantially. It looks like you could see it's just starting to turn. So it's basically going to probably bottom out like it did before, and will go to lower rent, 1 or 2% rent increases, which is right now would potentially be less than inflation.
Right.
This is part of when we said moderate, that home prices and rents would moderate over the next, year or two.
Right.
This is literally exactly what we said was going to happen, right?
It is, and it's a good thing because, like I said, there has to be a new equilibrium established. Right, things have to kind of just shake out and catch up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the next. This is a bunch of bullet points from the article. Okay. The typical U.S. rents 2,052. It's 3.3% higher than a year ago. A lot of times when you see rent reports, you have to be careful because like Zumper does a really good job with them, but they'll specifically say this is for 1-bedroom homes, and they'll use cities. So they'll go, hey, these are the going rents in cities for like 1-bedroom apartment, right? So you have to look at what that is. This doesn't break it out, but I'm guessing it's median rent, and it's the whole U.S. So if you're in San Francisco, don't go, or New York City, where I think a 1-bedroom median rent is $4,500 or more, right? Because if you're in, whatever.
But even within a particular city, we've talked about this before. Real estate is very hyperlocal, so one building is going to be far more expensive than the building next door because of amenities, prestige, whatever. So you have to kind of look at it very specifically in your particular market or whatever segment that interests you.
Yeah, $2,000 a month in Monroeville, Alabama, probably put you in the country club. Okay, all right. Monthly rent growth is slowing as we head into a cooler season. That is what we saw in the chart, right? We saw rent growth slowing. That's not a bad thing. Here's an interesting one. Metros in the Northeast led the way for annual rent growth, while rents have fallen year over year in Austin, Vegas. They were very small amounts, minus 0.3%. Austin was a little more. I think it was minus 1%. But of the top 50 markets, the 50 largest markets, only Austin and Las Vegas had declines. Everyone else had a rent increase. But they weren't substantial. They were all 3, 4, 5. And then for an annualized rate. And then Vegas was like minus 0.3%. It was pretty low.
Right.
Okay, here is the next chart. This is the median rent since 1988. You can see that almost at no point here do rents really drop, okay, on this chart. Rents look like they follow inflation plus a little. Wouldn't you say that?
Right.
Rents basically do what rents and housing probably go pretty darn close to hand in hand.
Yes.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah, usually.
The only difference, Oana, is that affordability changes because interest rates change.
Right.
So let's say, use now an example. Let's say the same number of homes on the market, home prices are going up. Same number of homes on the market, but interest rates the government said, hey, we're afraid, so we're going to dump interest rates, and lenders are offering 3.5% mortgages again. What happens to those existing houses that are out there for sale? Is there a chance every house disappears?
Absolutely, but at that point, you're going to have more houses come on the market. So this is something that to really keep in mind, that government policy makes a huge difference to every segment of all of our lives.
Right.
And housing is a prime example of that, right? So if the government, to your point, reduces interest rates, then people will bring more houses on the market because now they can trade, right? They can sell their house and then they can buy another house, so the number of transactions increases. If the government all of a sudden says, hey, you can deduct mortgage interest regardless of how much money you make, and you can deduct all of it, then again, you've got a government policy that changes people's behavior. If the government says, you know what, we're going to do away with your primary residence tax, free money, the first $500 for a couple, for $500,000 for a couple of profit right now is tax free. If the government says, you know what, starting with next year, it won't be tax free, then again, people will go ahead and turn properties because they want to capture that profit and not pay taxes on it. So government policies influence our behavior. So that's a driver, particularly in housing, because housing is dealing with such large dollar volumes that we are much more likely to take action to protect our investment, to protect our profit or whatever it is.
On that note, I have a prediction. Okay, next year will be an election.
Woohoo.
I predict that whoever the parties are running government, including the president, will decide that because of the expensive housing unaffordability, a lot of them will run on the housing affordability type things because they're trying to get, votes. So they will then put in more government things that actually make home ownership even like a better deal, which further makes things even worse for home affordability. Meaning they're saying, look, if people are having such a hard time buying homes, let's make it, so more people, like there's more demand for housing. Let's make it easy, whatever benefits you get more tax breaks. We're going to raise the tax limits. We're going to give you more mortgage interest deduction. I predict they do that thinking they're helping people, because what someone's going to say is, look, I can't afford, we get people all the time that come in the comments on it and they go, well, I can't afford $2,400 for a house payment. So the government's going to go, fine. What we're going to do then is we're going to make that affordable because we're going to give 100% of your mortgage payment tax deductible right off the top, whether or not you're going to get, whether or not you meet the deduction limits. We're just going to give it to you as a gift, right? So that's first of all going to benefit everyone who already has the house, but then it's going to incentivize a bunch of people to jump in the market. So when that happens, potentially home prices, there's really no right way to do this other than, because the problem is if we make borrowing really easy, then we have the same problem. But Oana, what do you think about this fundamentally? The problem really is we don't have enough houses. Like in the U.S., there's not enough houses. The National Association of Home Builders has already said they're going to start backing off on how many homes that are being built because they're more pessimistic and they're seeing less people come into the sales centers. Mm-hmm. A third of all new homes, they're giving either a price decrease or some special mortgage thing to get people to buy. Mm-hmm. So as soon as their profit starts to shrink, they'll build less homes. It forces more people into the resale market. And then they're not building enough homes to cover the household formations.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, I agree with you regarding the builders.
Okay.
As far as the government's concerned, affordability is a talking point to get votes, but that isn't why they're going to do it. Follow the money, right? I'm sorry, but that's just the bottom line. Follow the money. So to me, it says that there are stakeholders that will profit from this, and that's why this is going to happen. However that is structured, it will be to benefit stakeholders that are actually the true employers of our representatives.
Oh, you're talking about like lenders. JP Morgan Chase.
I'm talking about lenders. I'm talking about whoever else is in there that is going to profit from this. You might see that there's some deduction for some other thing that, again, it's going to benefit some industry. To me, it's always about following the money. It's not about actually helping the consumer, because the consumer is not is not really their constituency. Their constituency are the people who truly employ them and their family members.
So what you're saying is the mortgage interest tax deduction was not a tax deduction to help the homeowner.
No.
It was a tax deduction to help the mortgage company.
To help builders.
You think to help builders?
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Absolutely. Because
Didn't help mortgage companies though?
it helped mortgage companies. It certainly created so many mortgage companies by creating the opportunity for this product, but it also helped the builders because in effect, it subsidizes building. It subsidizes the mortgage industry. It subsidizes the title industry. It subsidizes realtors. It subsidizes everybody involved in the transaction. I mean, if you look at a transaction, there are like 80 different people involved in every transaction.
I know. This is one of the most subsidized industries, real estate.
It is. Yeah. And the government gets to pick the winners and losers. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right.
So that's kind of my sentiment. I'm sorry that if I'm a little dark about it, but that's just the reality.
That's the Romanian in you coming out, showing us Westerners about how evil our capitalistic ways are. No,
capitalism is great. It's the current system that incentivizes, for lack of a better word, corruption.
Okay, so you're saying that Adam Smith's invisible hand, which is from The Wealth of Nations, is more like a steel, like a knight in armor with a steel gauntlet who's like smashing the.
Look, every time the government's helping you, somebody really big is profiting.
Okay, not just pharmaceutical companies and defense companies.
Right. I mean, every time the consumer is supposed to. Okay, Dodd-Frank. Okay, this is a prime example. Dodd-Frank was supposed to make banking more responsible and all that. And what happened? We ended up with so many more banks. We ended up with so many more lenders and so much more. It didn't do exactly what was intended. Part of it did what it was intended. It did. It certainly helped streamline the lending process and help put some guardrails up as far as the consumer qualifications for loans, but it also, created these behemoths and it just made lending much more profitable for the lending industry.
Okay, your prediction next year, August of next year, when we do this report and we compare August, the Zillow. Remember, this is Zillow's numbers. We didn't make up these charts. Okay, do you think Zillow's pretty close? 4.5%, 5%. 6% appreciation in a year, which just beats inflation barely.
Yeah, I think Zillow's pretty close.
Even with interest rates that are probably going to be between 6.5 and 7.2 for the next 12 months.
Right, so I think Zillow's pretty close. I think Zillow has a better pulse of what's happening than I think most other companies, simply because Zillow is able to track people's searches.
Right, Redfin does too.
Right. Redfin does too, but I think more people will use Zillow than Redfin. So I think Zillow has a broader database from which to evaluate trends.
Right. The A in Redfin and the A in Zillow both stand for accuracy. Okay.
All right. So that was kind of fun. Hope you like the charts. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you think I was just too rough on the government, please feel free to let me know.
I think they're here. I see the SWAT team is outside.
Please feel free to let me know. Look, the bottom line is we want to engage with you. So please leave us comments. You don't have to agree with us. We appreciate your comments.
Actually, we get a ton of people. We probably get 2/3 of the people in the comments who don't agree with us.
And that's okay.
It's fine.
That's totally fine.
We've done whole videos because somebody gave us some new information on something we didn't know that we didn't agree with. And
yes.
Yeah, we did a video.
So please like the video. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell.
We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. Yes. We're super excited about it.
Hit the notification bell so you get to watch another awesome video. And remember to share the video. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.